Greetings there, people. Hello, welcome and hi to the new show. Uh, well, not the new show, but the next show. What's today's date? It's the 17th of July. Nope, it's August. Too bad. You got it wrong. How's it going, people? We're here. We're live. We're hip. We're hype. We're happening. It's another day in IVPAC. Another glorious day in the core. And we're here. Gonna be talking about something today that I actually meant to talk about before. Um, I meant to touch base on the phases. 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, when I skipped the show. Uh, Unintentionally, mind you, but I skipped the show. I was meaning to do this because I'm right in the middle of like all the anniversaries of why the hell this is not showing up on my screen. Um, it was mostly about Warp and why it happened. Oh, that was funny. No, it was mostly about the phases, and like I got sidetracked by I wanted to touch base with like the carriers and what peeps were doing, why they were doing them, and that's not right. Yeah, no, that's not right at all. Oh my God, I gotta go through so many. How about we change this up a little bit? Let's do this right here. I'm trying to get this prepared. I was a little bit unprepared because I was running late again. Seems to be the story of this damn thing. And no, I'm not gonna freaking do this freaking thing. I don't want to do this freaking thing. I want this thing to be. What the hell? Okay. I want this to be right. You know what I mean? So anyway, yeah, there they are. So I wanted to do it because we were in the midst of all of their launches, their time, their anniversaries, and like we've been trying to keep track of anniversaries and kind of doing a shitty job lately. But like this was a looking back through the histories. I mean, obviously phases have been launched all through time and stuff like that, but some of the bigger, better models have always launched during like this time of year, especially like the Phase 3, the Phase 4. Well, no, not the Phase 4, but the Phase. My God, I'm I'm looking here. I'm looking here. I'm looking here. Yeah, the Phase 5. Yeah, and mostly the 3 and the 5, which is basically the same plane, only plastic. But yeah, and I'm just like I said, I wanted to get it across because these happenings, this is what usually was the case. We're taking off and flying. Um, I wanted to get it out there. How you doing, OAE? I know you're being silent, but you're watching. I appreciate you. Or unless that's Robert, but I know you're watching in. Unless Mark being in and watching in the silent majority, I figured it's OAE, but I could be wrong. Anyway, I'm live. We're live. We're here, and I said I wanted to do it because I always feel like it belongs to summer. I think all those advancements came along then, and I'm missing my particular sheet that I was really going to reference in the fact of. Oh wait, it's in variants. I knew this. I knew this. It's just not in his variant. It's in my variant. I gotta reference a different one here, people. There they are. There's the ones. That's what I'm talking about. So yeah, if I break down all the particular variants of the phases, the individual ones, it's like there's a lot of. My God, I can't even hold that to truth as well. It's a lot of all over the place. There's like not a month a phase hasn't come out in any way, shape, or form. So damn it, that's false. Stupid. Anyway, but I still felt like it was a summer baby. So that's why I wanted to do it now. Go with me on that, alright? God. Yeah. um, I just remember, I particularly remember July of 1990, okay? in July of 1990 is when that was their heyday. I mean, the Phase 3 rolled out in, like, okay, let me start back at the beginning. So the Phase 1, all right? Phase 1 was, like, quite literally rolled out, designed, rolled out, first flown, everything fast because it was for a battle. And it came up with an idea, and it was a secret plane. And it was a secret plane because nobody knew how to build it. Except for me, I made it exclusive. And yeah, sure, it wasn't all that exclusive. But if you remember back last month's show, about a month's time ago, and I showed you how to build a Phase 1 versus the difference between a 2 and a 3, and that Phase 1 having been like, okay, notebook paper and 3 lines. I mean, you could make it of wide ruled notebook paper, basically 3 lines, and you fold your first triangle, right? But I think even so, the more crucial to that was the material, which was the lines. So the notebook sheet, the loose leaf sheet. Um, Not even thinking about the holes, even though the holes probably had a lot to do with it. But what I was getting at was, like, it was a necessity. We were in the middle of paper air war, and quite a few designs, like, in a short period of time, rolled out at that point. So I don't know, like, exactly how many I had done to do that. I'm trying to reference here now. Gotta get it all. Gotta get it all. But 8, 9, 11, 11, 15, all during the war. So basically, Wind Cutter, Arrow, Osprey, and the Phase 1 were all built during the war. So you had those 4 designs. Uh, and I mean, they were built earlier than that, but I kind of furthered the moth development a little bit, even though we lost all moths in the very late stages before Halloween. Uh, yeah, so, but when you look at it, it's amazing the ones that I had built for that sort of thing, because, like, it was all war aircraft, obviously. It was a medium or long range penetrator, it was an interceptor, it was close range support, and it was a dogfighter. And out of those, the Phase 1 being the dogfighter was, like, kind of like the least expected, the least needed. And you never think, like, it was the last one built because as we warred and how we were warring, it like, obviously you needed interceptors, you needed something to throw at. Other people would throw at other planes. It was it was a necessity. But again, then came, like, the fact that we somehow were dogfighting, and in paper planes, in if you get into combat, you don't really picture yourself throwing and trying to, like, throw a plane and there's nobody in the cockpit, so who are you outmaneuvering? But that's what we were trying to do. It's like we were literally trying to outmaneuver each other. It wasn't a matter of, like, I think what it was a sign of prowess. It was like, okay, I can build a plane that does this. Can you stop it? And it was a plane that was hard for interceptors to get because it was unpredictable. And I saw in my opponents, I saw in my allies and adversaries, I saw a mutual respect as well as, like, an honor system. It was like a Geneva Convention, if you will. We didn't, like I said, we lost planes with legitimate reason. We expected to lose planes, but we treated each other's planes with an air of dignity. We didn't just, like, "Now we got yours, we'll crush it," which, I mean, actually, we kind of did do that, but we more so did, like, "Hey, yours is really maneuverable in the air. That's really cool," and we begrudgingly gave them a victory. Like, like, "Wow, your plane can outmaneuver mine. That's really cool. Well, we're gonna have to come back with something better." And we went about it that way. And I never expected, as kids especially, I never expected it to be anything more than shooting down other planes and possibly shooting your planes at people. Because when you're young, you do that sort of thing. And so looking at it was, like, amazing. Seeing that was amazing. It's like, wow, like, okay, okay, dog fighters mean something. So if you consider it, like, now, and you may question, as we go on through IVPAC, you're like thinking, why the hell do we have dogfighters? Why are they so highly thought of? That's why, because you never really can expect how your opponent's going to be, how are you going to think of it? I like to think that we're all like more a little less well, we're a little less violent, and chances are we're probably more so. But I want to think of it as being that way, and that's why we like fly that way, and we can honor the fact that a person, a potential opponent, and hopefully a potentially future ally would see it and be like, "That was cool. How did you build that?" So, but it was also another reason why we were so adamant about like how we to this day it's more tradition than anything else that we destroy the planes. We're not using them if we're not storing them because they should not fall into the enemy hands. So anyway, that phase one was that creation. It was like the last necessity I felt I needed. Um, I mean, don't get me wrong. Each one of those roles that the new planes had, I'd already had, and I think everybody else had a variant of something like that. They just didn't like. I'm fairly well certain more of them used like they considered it their bombers. Didn't have a strike plane. It was really my first long range striker. Windcutter was awesome at that, if a little big, but the phase really highlighted it, and it was probably the one that used the most, as I termed it back then, secretive technology because it was built in. You couldn't tell how it was made. Uh, all the rest of them, even the ones I had, plus the ones that were built then, you could look at and, well, maybe not Osprey. Yeah, Osprey and Phase One were definitely it. Like Windcutter was unique and nobody had done it, but it was pretty easy to see how it could be done. And there were others like all the rest in my force, my fleet at the time were like that. But keep in mind that back then, again, we're talking about October of 1985. I really only had like I'd retired some. As a matter of fact, as the war drew to a close, I retired the bat and the lance, but I used the bat and the lance during the war. I really only lost like, I mean, Jetstreak also came to an end, but because it was basically my last multi-role plane that I literally called multi-role. I know like others, I'm looking at you, OE, have multi-role aircraft, and that's all well and good. I just I felt like it pegged me. I felt like it was like, okay, I'm not really trying to do that. I'm not really trying to be it's not multi-role is like all singing, all dancing. If you build a multi-role plane, there's no need to design any others. Hey, look, it'd be a fighter. Hey, look, it'd be attack. Hey, look, it'd be a bomber. So I didn't want to do that then. I don't want to do that now, even though, well, I, news for later. Anyway, so the phase one was born. The phase two was just a natural progression of that. Again, if you remember the show, go back and watch it if you don't remember it. But like, if you remember how it was built, I thought it was a natural progression. You had this, this like the way this is phase two. Nothing different, nothing changed. Yeah, this is a phase two if it was built complete. And like I hadn't even no tech. I mean, I literally like took it and said like, oh, screw that. Let's go ahead and take the triangle all the way down. Let's point the nose instead of like lopping it off here, which made it the snub. I mean, a good inch. You take those three lines that I've talked about. A good inch falls off the nose of the aircraft. You can see all the way over here, right? You just don't like to, so I'll keep it here. But yeah, a good inch falls off the nose of the aircraft, if not more, which of course makes the airplane shorter. But the bonus of it is, because of what a phase one is, you don't lose any weight. You gain weight in the twos, threes, fours, fives, everything else because they point. And believe me, I thought about that too. But you gain weight, even though you replace it in the three because you put a paperclip in there, and the paperclip is crucial. It's also a small paperclip. Don't go putting a large paperclip in there because while it works, you're totally making a different aircraft out of it than what it was intended to be. It's supposed to be not like a baby one, not like one of those little cutesy ones that are painted that really are smaller. It's supposed to be your average too small paperclip. I think I mostly use average for the most part. But anyway, so once I did this and pointed the tip, it when you realize how you've built, if you've built along with me and built a phase one, and then built along with me and built a phase two, you know how much different that is. By doing a simple thing, it's more than just notebook paper because the phase twos were originally built with loose leaf paper as well, but it's more than just that. It is the weight being added as well as the length, which is more crucial, being added to the overall diameter of the plane. Or diameter, why did I say that? I didn't want to say it. I just didn't want to say length again. But, I mean, considering this is where it stopped, and the length went back this way. I mean, this is what you consider is like the entire plane shifted. So there's way more back behind it, while there's way less in front of it and less weight until you put the paperclip back in. Phase ones also work really good with a staple in their center of gravity. I didn't actually point that out in the show, and I should have. But yeah, phase ones really, I highly recommend you try it. Phase ones with a staple in the middle. Phase two seemed to like it, but you have to get with Faro on that because Faro always built the stealth one like that, and the stealth one really rocked the staple. As a matter of fact, that was like a crucial design element. I think it was in every stealth one practically. I don't know how. He built the design off me. He borrowed it, he exported it, and yet that plane really did not do as good unless you put that staple in. I watched him build it. He watched me and did it. It's like he built basically the same plane. He minor tweaked it, and then that staple. It's amazing when it's considered. But anywho, that's neither here nor there. The point being that he made his own bird. So, hence why it's a stealth one. It's still an export, but it was a stealth one. You can name it whatever you want. He never proclaimed it to be truly stealthy. As I said, our core group of guys that have got together all agreed. I mean, we all like stealth. We all like, I mean, well, we like the idea behind it. I mean, we weren't goo-goo over it and everything like that, especially back then when it was in its infancy. I mean, seriously, think about it. In '85, the only thing we had that you could even talk about stealth was not out in the open. You didn't say it out loud. You knew that like the SR-71 was something special, and you knew the B1 integrated something like that, but nobody used the S word back then. Seriously, I know firsthand. It wasn't just thrown out there. And I lived in a military family. My mom was in intelligence. Like, it just, yeah, she wasn't supposed to bring it home. But still, that wasn't the word they used, you know? So, I mean, any publication, and I keep some of my publications from back then, they don't mention it. They don't even mention low observable. Now, granted, that could be because we were trying to hide that fact, but you just didn't say it. You didn't really think that the B1, I mean, you look at the B1, especially back then, but even now, you look at it and you don't think, like, man, is it really that stealthy? But yes, it is. It really is. They knew it when they built it. They knew what they were doing. Hence why it was so modified over the B1A. The B1A, it's why the B1A failed. It wasn't just a matter of Jimmy Carter being a wuss and like, oh, we don't need that. You don't need that because it didn't pass, it didn't follow all the contract settings. It just wasn't living up to the hype for two simple reasons that they remedied in the B1B. All you need to do is see a side by side of the B1A and the B1B to know the difference in the aircraft. But anyway, so there's that. So he had the stealth one, and he called it that because he wanted to name it. Like I said, we kind of liked it. It was kind of cool. We'd heard the term at that point. So, this was not 85, mind you. This was like 89, 90. So, actually, that was 88 even, but still. So yeah, there's that. But yeah. And it was cool. His plane was pretty well rocking. His plane was cool. I enjoyed it. I'd flown it. I'd brought it up here as TDY back when I was living in South Carolina. And I've told you all about this before, but he lent me those planes. I took a full squad. I took a full wing, excuse me. So I had like almost every one of his examples. I don't think. What did I say? I know a Viking one. I know an Air Raider came. I know a Stealth one came. And I think I know I didn't have Bumblebee. I might have had Night Prowler. But I'm not entirely sure about Night Prowler. I know those three came for a fact. And not Bumblebee. So I'm indifferent about the Night Prowler. That one might not have made it. Viking one was really cool. That plane was hot. But anyhow, so yeah, these planes, these are the kind of planes I was talking about that we just, like we saw these, thought they was cool. So, and phase ones, you guys have seen phase ones. You know what a phase one is. I'm not gonna like, but since I'm talking about this and we're kind of referencing this. And I understand, ta-da, there's one in front of you. So you know what we're dealing with here. Oh my God, these pictures. I'm sorry. I meant to actually have this a little bit more ready because what I wanted to do was have these like flash up so you know which ones we were on when we were on them. And you've seen this shot before because it was taken here, but I'm gonna give you another I'm gonna give you the other option here just because, okay? Bear with me. Um because I'm using it as a demonstration. So anyway, uh phase 1. You see the paper clip, you see the fact that it's snubbed, but the two readily distinguishing characteristics of the phase 1 is that paperclip in the nose. Yes, the snub to a lesser extent, but then the extreme long length to the winglet slash anhedral, and that plane is basically the main reason why it's called them anhedrals because when you look at it, you see like how far it goes, how much of the wing it constitutes. That's exactly why it's like, man, it's an anhedral. And I use the term instead of like a description of something, more like it is something. So that's why I stick with that. So again, your phase 1 there, um, and those are the identifying characteristics. So like you're looking at it. I don't have a picture of a 2. I've told all y'all, and I'm gonna say this again. I'm gonna re-review this, especially for IVPAC members. Get me your freaking pictures. I need a picture. I need a caption so I know what it is I'm looking at. Preferably the role, even though if you're in, I should know via the sheets. You should have edited or told me to edit so I know what role they have. But I like having that in hand. And here I am not living up to my own hype because I don't have a picture of that. Although I'm a slob. Oh man. So anyway, so we came into like 88. In 88, I don't know why. I can't explain this. Even though in 88 I was going with like literally the first rough drafts of becoming like the first documents that I could actually physically record onto paper of um they literally was. It was like the first time I could record digitally and print onto paper um the core of how IVPAC was going. I never had it on paper before because I was too young and didn't have it. Uh, but now, and here we are, decades later. But it was the first time I could describe it. It was the first time I could see it. And like, while I did keep a flight log, I've almost always kept a flight log, at least since I've been back in America. Germany, I never had one, and I regret that. But I was young and stupid, so I had a reason. I don't have too much of a reason anymore, but anyway, yeah, 3.2.18. I'll have to write that up. So the 2 came out in 88, and 88, well, I'm saying that is because 88 was a blur. I have no idea. I don't get me wrong. I remember the first flight and the test flights of the Javelins when it rolled out the day before February, and in South Carolina, that was a nice balmy 55 degrees. It never gets that cold, and it really was. It like, dude, it was a warmer day. It was cloudy. I almost lost it to a pine tree. I buried it in a fire ant nest. It had like multitude of fire ant bites, including the guts of a dead fire ant in it. Oh yeah, I remember that plane. And it was one of the because it was my test bird number 1. I actually kept a stick tally of how many flights it had on it. See, so I remember that. I remember taking it through, but I I also remember like it was in the spring of that time. It was in April that I was tweaking phase 1s, and it wasn't until May that I finally got it and realized what I had done. This is really strange. What I did was I had built one like a phase, what I call the phase 2 now. Didn't know it because usually you don't when you first build them. If you're modifying a particular design, you don't know it's coming. I mean, this is why me and Mark get into it. We talk about like furthering a design or like what's the next step, variant versus a new design, and like what your intent is. Well, something like that is like, okay, like a phase 2, nothing like a phase 1. And matter of fact, almost all the rest of the phases, save the 6, is nothing like a phase 1. Phase 1s and 6s are really close together because they're built identically. But a phase 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8 are all, they're the same family style. And again, my intent may have been to build that. And of course, I had it on the brain because I'm pretty sure I took a phase 1 apart to build the phase 2 at that time. Because a lot of them were built in bulk during the war, and then there was a hiatus. Like in 87, especially because of the move, transition, there was not a lot of aircraft built in 87, especially in the latter half of the year. That's why I'm saying spring of 88 is when it kind of kicked into high gear again. That winter season, the school year of 88 was really horrible, especially after the turn of the year for myself. So I'm talking about a phase history, so this is relevant to me. May not be that interesting to you, I don't know. But so anyway, so what I did was I realized, like, because of something that Pharaoh had brought up, we were really interested in landing gear. We were really interested in functional landing gear on a regular paper plane. Keep in mind, again, the time, we were like 13 years old, no internet, a barely functioning something called flypaper that only those of y'all as old as me or older are going to remember, because it was a quarterly paper aircraft journal, which I long to have back, and I wish all of us in the paper airplane world could get together and make. I would volunteer to be anything in that, the photographer, the editor, whatever you need, but I definitely want to start it. I think it'd be awesome. But Flypaper had one, and it showed a few things. Dr. Nehemiah, I believe, was involved in it. At least they interviewed him a couple times. Keith Ferris was involved in it. Yeah, it was good stuff. He's the dude that actually, I don't know if he built a plane. Actually, I think I'm saying it wrong somehow. Forgive me. But like, I know like issues were talking about certain planes, and they would always highlight a plane, and it was basically made on a printer in somebody's basement at one point, but it was really cool. Anyway, so but we looked through a couple of issues. He got one, I got one, and landing gear was just like, how could we integrate it into a plane? How could we make it functional? And we'd also seen, like, I got my copy of the Ultimate Paper Plane. He got his copy of like the what was it, the first great international paper airplane contest, which I bought for him as a gift, and we based our planes on that. And I think like both of them had a reference to a design that had a built-in landing gear, but it didn't really look like a landing gear. It was basically just fuselage strakes that were folded out from the basic fuselage that provided a landing gears type setup. So if the plane glided down to a landing, it would keep itself upright because it had built-in gear, even though that was actually built in for the flight. Well, that was cool. It's a good idea. But we wanted to take it a step further. We were like, no, I want functional gear. I want gear that you can tuck away. I want gear that you can like become one with the wing body surface, and yet when they land, you can either glide on them, which obviously wasn't going to work because you can't retract them in flight. Even now, you're going to be hard pressed. It's barely a paper airplane anymore if you could do that. But they had those, and we were like, oh, so good. And you may have seen, I don't like, I had this picture. I had this picture a long time ago. I have since lost this picture. But I did this drawing based on the Jesus H Christ, that thing is small. I did a drawing based on the picture, and I thought it was really good. I did this in Microsoft Paint. Actually, it wasn't even yeah, no, it was. I did this on a Tandy 1000 in like '88, back in the day, and this is what it was. This is a totally accurate representation of what I did that day. As close to the picture as I could get it. It like literally shows the fin code of the plane. I was adept at marking them, so it said danger on the nose. It had an X in the safety. That was what I was doing. Was kind of cool. But you'll see a lot of artistic license, and I tried to make it look as good. My neighbor, the Henrys, lived in a house that was yellow colored next door. That wasn't my driveway. That was the sidewalk that led to the driveway. Is what it's parked on. And they had some tall ass pine trees because it's South Carolina, and the neighbor's house is back there. But anyway, VI was the village's base code. It was part of the 11th Fighter Squadron at the time, and number 142. This is back when I was a company, not an industry. So my code was actually SCP. Um, Again, I was a kid. I didn't know I didn't have differentiating codes on planes yet. But anyway, that was number 142, and it has landing gear. And you can see down there, the landing gear is like what I had done was I took paper clips. I'm going to highlight this a little bit further. You get a better idea of it. See, they're down there like, oh, those paper clips, those little things down there, are bent paper clips, and the wheels were holes punched out of a file folder. They're really stiff, and they're round. So what I did was I just simply punctured the frame of the plane, put those paper clips in there, and basically left it. I mean, the hole was stiff enough. I mean, you could retract those gear so they didn't touch the ground, and yet when it landed, they were on the ground and the plane held itself up. So I said that's an accurate representation. It really held itself up. I had that picture, but this is the only representation I have of it now. So that's all it is. But that was a phase two, and I had that idea, and that was a okay. That was a later design, but a direct result of the designs that we had made at the time. The first one, where I was going with what phase two was I built it without building a phase one, and actually put flat feet landing gear, like landing pads into the plane. Those worked too, and were retractable. Like I could cut, you put the wing in there. I had a pad here, a stock, and you could fold it down, and it would actually sit on its pads. It was awesome. I loved it. I actually cut a deep rudder slant into it, which also came about with the rudder slant technology that I hadn't had before that. But I cut a deep rudder slant into it at about. It was a phase two, so it was on this plane, but I cut like the deepest one I've ever done, like this. And like the wing fold, if you see the line, the wing fold was here, so I had like almost nothing back here, but I did have a little bit of trailing edge of the rudder, so it was a slight slant. But the only reason I cut that into it was because I made these so short, stocky, because I didn't want to cut into the wing. When they dropped, the ass end of the plane dropped. So I wanted it to actually hold itself up, so I cut that off, and it worked. The plane was supporting itself with its landing gear that were built in. The front one was a lot more difficult, but because there's so much paper in there, what I did was I cut a section out about like right here. It's actually way bigger than that. It's about where this black mark is. If you can see it, it's like here to here. I cut this part out, overlapped it, and cut it at the exact same place on the other side, and that became the gear door that could open up, and underneath it, with the paper that's underneath from the inside folds, I made another landing pad that would fold out. That was difficult because obviously the fold is fighting this fold here. And so there was some tape in there. I remember that. And it was like twisted to get it to fold forward. It didn't need it to. I just thought it looked cooler. So I did that and it worked. But it was also because that one was that long, whereas these were back here. From here, that's why it was like Carolina squatted. Hate that look. Looked like it was taking a dump, but it held itself up. It was supported. So anyway, I know that was a long-winded story, and it really told the tale of the landing gear. However, that is basically when I realized I had a new phase. Because I'd created that plane from a 1 without building a true 1 because I had a nose. It didn't go as far back. I didn't build the 3 triangles in order to get landing gear on it. I'm like, holy shit, this is a new phase. And at the time, I knew that, and I called it the Phase 1M. It sparks a lot of memories for me, and if any of you guys have been around with me that long, you would know it, you would recognize it, because the Phase 1M was a work of art. The Phase 1M was like seriously, every phase I had was a Phase 1M at that time. Once I realized what that was and how that flew, I built nothing else. I was in love with it. Phase 1M flew. Phase 1M, like, at the time, I did not, it is what is now known as the Phase 2, but it was the 1M. And like I said, everything was a 1M. Don't get me, I don't understand. It wasn't the next alphabetical one in line. I just knew I modified it, and that's what the M stood for. And I had all these crazy ideas of how I was going to do it. Like, I could build phases sequentially. How about we just call them with all the letters of the alphabet? No. How about if I just use the vowels? How about if I keep going like A, E, I? I was talking about A, E, I, M. I did the phase A 1A, phase 1E, I had advanced, enhanced, improved, modified. And my idea was like, after I built 4 of those, I should be done, and the next one would be the next phase. It would be like, okay, after I've been through the 4 letters, can't modify it no more, we're on to the next phase. I mean, again, for a 14-year-old, it sounded awesome. I didn't go with that, but I did it. So, but the 1M was the shit. It made more people fall in love with the hobby and the plane. It's my heyday of exporting. That's what got the Stealth 1 airborne. Everybody called something the 1M because they thought it was just hot. I thought nothing of it at the time. I really did. I didn't like nothing. I was like, you guys like it? Fine. Hey, here's how you build it. Check it out. I've always been like, I don't care. I don't want the enemy to have my planes and I'll destroy them, but I'll willingly share them with friends. I've always been that way. So, and now it's more like, well, man, dude, if you fly planes, you're my friend. So, we're friends. But anyway, so I had the 1M. Everybody had a 1M. Something was the Viking 1M was because of the 1M. There was a phase 80. There was a phase 90. There was a phase 100. I mean, yeah, the exports were rolling out. So anyway, then came another portion of that line when I thought, like, there's a lot of wing back here. This is too. You look at it, you see it, and you're like, this is too basic. It's too basic. Like, anybody could do this. What can we do to this really quickly, like, and make it special? Well, it took a while to come up with that speciality. I was like, I don't know, man. What is something I could do that keeps it a phase? What is the natural progression of things? I didn't see it. It took me a while to find it. But then, it kind of dawned on me, and oh my God, these pictures are huge. Oh, sorry, bear with me. I keep doing this crap. It's because the drawings are teeny, 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 tiny. I should have transitioned worse, but the only one drawing I had was that, so I'm sorry. You saw that, and you saw that's what it was, and there's what it is. But now I got to go to a picture, and this picture is like the size of my Camaro poster back in the day. God forbid. How big is this picture? Oh, there we go. Okay. So I'm trying to get it ready for you. Bear with me. And so I was looking at it, and this was like 1990, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I can do this. So we made a cut. You may remember this plane. I used to have, well, I still have a bunch of these. Phase 3 is still the bulk majority of the one. Well, now it's phase 4s, but we have that plane. So 218 was not the first. It is definitely by far the most celebrated right now because you guys have all seen her. She's the oldest I think that I have, I believe, and she regularly flies. I try to get out there with her on a regular basis to prove that it can still do it, which of course it still does. And the funny thing is I think it still carries, wait, doesn't it? I think it still carries that fin code, and that fin code is no longer, that's not it. That's another one with that fin code. There she is. Yeah. So, like I said, this one's become a star in her own right because of that. See if I can get this. If I get this just so you can see. But yeah, you see the cut. The cut is into the wing. And as we go back, yep, that's her. That's her. Yeah, she's an oldie. Still flies really good. Still doesn't seem any more. I mean, like obviously a little bit whiter, but not any more delicate than this plane is. Paper's held up pretty good. There's some wrinkles in it, but she flies like she needs to. That's all that matters. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, there's 218. She's still with us, and you can see the difference. Like I said, That's what I came up with as a difference. Is like I'm cutting this out, and so I made it like a triangular slash rhomboid wing, and gave it a reverse slant trailing edge, is what we call it, the RSTE. Uh, makes all the difference. Any plane that you have with a straight edge can get this. Any plane. Will they benefit from it? Don't know. But it's a simple thing to do, and you should all try it. If you haven't tried it yet, give it a shot. There are some planes when it's just not going to affect. Some planes you physically cannot do it with. If you sat with me through on this one, I can't do it with that. You wouldn't want to do it with that. You've seen a wasp. A wasp would take out its little delta diamond tips that it has, and it's not needed, but it kind of makes the plane, so wasp will never get it. It's not something that certain every plane obviously is going to have, but you should definitely try it. It can be debated and argued to this day amongst anybody who's seen both of them fly whether or not a phase 2 can beat a phase 3. I think overall the length is like a distance flight is probably a little bit worse with a 3, but it's negligible because a 3 can get higher and it's more stable. I would have thought it'd be the other way around with a little bit of extra wing area here, but apparently the nice chop off you get here, whereas you have like some like the trailing edge and then it catches the wing vortices that come downside and hit there and then start trailing off. They dissipate faster than they do here, so there's a little bit more turbulent air behind this for a longer period of time. I'd like to think that's the whole reasoning behind why these are a little bit more stable than these. But I think it also depends on the plane because I've seen these rock just as much, if not more, and if you've seen some of our videos, than these do. You haven't seen too many phase 2s fly because most of mine are retired. But if you build your own and compare, I'd love to see y'all's results compared to ours because again, I'd like to see and like let's end the debate, let's end the issues. Which one flies better overall, the 2 or the 3? It's not going to matter. I'm never going back to the 2. 2's retired. It's a design from 1988. I'm not going back. But I'll revisit a 1 because a 1's way more exclusive. But I will not revisit a 2. So anyhow. Yeah, there's that. And then, so we got through to those. And then came an even better star, I'd like to think. I'd like to think. In the phase 4. Now the phase 4, that's a different machine. That one it took another couple of years because I wasn't really after something special, wasn't really after something different, and just came up with it anyway. But the 4, all it did was add a tailplane, but it added an integral tailplane at the wings, at the trailing edge, inside the cut of the 3. And you got that. Some of y'all may find it a little difficult to be able to tell a 6 and a 4 apart. But if you look and see, this is a good example of a 4. This one, I believe, is actually after she's been in the water. And this particular version, 499 here, is really, really thick. So to warp 4 like this was pretty bad. She's been retired. But the paper is actually thick. It looked really cool. That's why I built her. But if you look into it, there's that slant. All it is a tailplane. And that thing will take you very far. You look into that, you build that, because that tailplane can be any size from what you see there, which is, I think, should be almost the maximum in a plane of that size of the wing area like that, because you're right about halfway through the trailing edge when you build it. But you can angle those cuts any way you want. You can sharpen the slant of the leading edge of the tailplane, trailing edge of the wing, any way you want. There's so much you can do with that cut, with that style cut, and has been done. If you've seen Abby here on the show talk about how he wants KIA's Exile 016, well, again, 016 is number 16 of this and many Exiles that KIA has built. And number 16 had a variant of these tailplanes, but they're really, really tiny. I think due to their size, the fins like he uses don't constitute another phase. It's a technology on a 3. I think once they get to a fuller size like that, it's beyond the tech that can be reversed, and that's why they have to look like this for mine versus what you see on his Exile. The tech has been used on a great many planes. You saw it in example with this Wasp like I've had here. Tuck this back thing down right here like bad boy, but yeah, this Wasp has it. This is how they look when they're really small. I wouldn't call this a different type of Wasp because of those. It just had some tailplanes on it. That's the only difference. And they're not. They're just not. They're small. So they're not as obtrusive as something like a Phase 4's got. But that's how I came up with that. I mean, was it a natural progression? I don't know, probably. And a 5, the 5 was really plain and simple. The 5 was just, I don't want to blow this up again. Bear with me again, people. I got to blow up a small pick so I can give you a bigger pick. But a Phase 5, this is the best shot of a Phase 5. I've got others, but this is the best one. The 5 is a 3 made entirely out of plastic. And it's see-through plastic. What it is like file folder protection. So it's really thick. It's a single sheet built the exact same way, so you can kind of, it's like an X-ray of a 3. But that Phase 5 being out of plastic, no water hurts it, no weather hurts it. It is typically the all-weather, and it is also why it is my primary interdictor. Not because it's true visual stealth, but it's also because it'll go out in any weather. And has and does and looks really cool and flies really good doing it. So yeah, and believe me also, it's highly glossy, but if you don't keep track of it, you will lose it. It's one of the reasons why I think I only have one of them right now, because the other 5 that I've ever built are lost. I do not have them. They would not be destroyed. They're plastic. They don't burn very well. So yeah. So that's a Phase 5. And yeah, that's how I got, I'm going to get smart here by shrinking that down before I bring up the other picture. So the 5 was just a natural progression in the fact that I literally just took it and said like, well, yeah, I'm just going to plasticize it because I really wanted an all-weather plane. You needed an all-weather plane. So after that, those literally were built like within, like from 85 to 95. And again, the Phase 5 was built in like, was it 95? I gotta reference my aircraft sheet again. Bear with me. I'm trying to make sure I give this logically, 93. So within a 10-year span, I went from 1 to 5. But where I was going with that though, also before I segue, the Phase 3. Initially, I told you about the Phase 1M, which was every plane that looked like this. When I built this, and I literally cut this off at the time, they were called the Phase 1M Block 2. And for a while, this really took up my life too. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty damn sure almost up until I think the Great Realignment, which happened in '94, I believe I always called these Block 2s. So for like 4 solid years, these were Block 2s. And I love that name. I almost kind of want to go back to it. I won't, but it was really cool sounding. So anyway, that's what I came up with, and I was like, no, I have built something different. These are different, and I laid the groundwork for what became the Phase line and how phases progress, and how in fact I progressed every other design. So I thought it was a cool transition. So anyway. So I stagnated for a while, and for a while I mean literally for a while. There was tech going on these planes, and I was upsizing because I had built the Phase, like Phase 3 airlift and bomber versions, Phase 4 airlift and bomber versions, the Phase 5 stealth bomber version. Sized it down and made the fighter bomber versions, which are still in the core. But it took another 15 years to come up with the next phase. Plus the fact that I'm just so happy with them. I was like, I can't beat these. These are great. Look at them fly. Can't beat these. I've had them go 200 yards before. You know, like I don't have any evidence. I don't feel I need to give any evidence. I witnessed it, but yeah, they went 200 yards. I measured it because I got a real estate wheel. So anyway, I didn't think I could top that. But then, like, I got on this kick in the early 2000s of a little bit retro, and I was like, what if I brought the phase back to its roots? And I was playing with an idea of, like, the early 2000s saw me start to get real. Like I talk about now, how like I don't think I'm making a decree about fins nowadays. But it started back then, like '02. Seriously, about '02, I was getting involved, and I was like, I wanted to look more real. How about a tailplane? How am I going to get a tailplane on? Well, what can I do with doing it with a one? I can do it with one. So I'm going to have to make it long, because if I make it long, like not like this, where if I had some way back there like a phase one had, it gives me enough room back here to play around with something. I did that. So the phase one, and in fact, since I gave the idea from the phase one, not only is the plane built like a phase one at first, but it almost uses the same ideas, like almost the same three steps, which you need to keep the length. Matter of fact, again, the first phase sixes were built on a notebook paper. But then I was like, okay, so I got that area to play with. So I want it to be as short as three looks here, and yet still have something back here. So we came up. So we knocked heads, we threw ideas around, and we came up with this. That's a phase six. And as you can see, so there's a little bit of snub, no paperclip, because there's a lot more weight in the nose. Little stumpy anhedrals, little stumpy winglets like a phase three has. But there's a full on swept tailplane back there. And you wouldn't think, after looking at a one or two, have you seen back in the day, how, the first one's a phase one, you look at it, you wouldn't see, like, how in the hell did you get that out of a one? And yet it's still the same plane. And like, if you study it, you'll be able to tell, like, yeah, you can see how it happened. But I wanted to do it with the notebook paper first, because I wanted to see. And it was amazing how these things flew. I'm not gonna lie. Phase back then, because of what they were, I actually developed a different name for them. I called them Phase One Mark IVs, and depending on the tailplane they had, because they borrowed from the one and the four. The four, in that there's a tailplane, even though it's nothing like a four's true tailplane, but it was a one in the way it started. So again, you're younger, you're stupider, you were like, okay, what the hell did it do it? But it was their flights that made me fall in love with them. It was the way they looked in flight. And this is what I mean. When you see them fly, they look so good. They look so real. That right there, that particular picture even, is one of the reasons why I was like, damn it, that is awesome. That is what I like to see. It looks like somebody's flying that plane. And this is a different version. I like to call it, like, at the time I'd call them one Mark IV-A and one Mark IV-B. The one I showed you before was the one Mark IV-A. The tailplane was more swept. This is a 4 Mark B, where it's still back there, but it's not as swept. It's more of a, probably more of the true tailplane. I don't know if I've got a close up of. Yeah, it's not it. I don't know if I've got a close up of the 4B. As like, I got good shots of the 4A, because the 4A's tech, like, I enjoy making that more than the 4B, but I enjoy watching the 4B fly. That picture's a little fuzzy because it was dusk, and I didn't set the shutter stop to fast enough and still catch the plane, but you get the idea. She's even got like some slant to it, which is what I started making into them, and like, yeah, oh man, I love watching those fly, because they're usually capable of a glide. They're supposed to be, and they usually act more like the original phase one in that they dogfight. So they're a little bit more unstable, but they're very, very capable of getting the hell oh of getting stable glides out of their flight. So that's not it. That's the one I showed you. I'm trying to show you another good one. Actually, I'm trying to show you the 1A. as opposed to the B. This is a pretty good shot. That's the 1A in flight. And again, they get up there. There's a tailplane. They're awesome. They're just awesome. I love seeing those pictures. I love that picture in particular. That's just that's great. But anyway, it took a little while. It took a little while, months of testing and naming, going through that, being like, is it a 1A? What are we dealing with here? And it took me that long, and I'm like, yeah, this is a new one because it has nothing like the others. It doesn't even have the snub, the original snub, like a one really does. So, and doesn't need the paperclip. So it became the Phase 6, and that's why we had the Phase 6. Really a thing of beauty. Um, I enjoy all of them, and most people that have them, of course, enjoy them. Um, there's almost nothing more iconic than the phases. So anyway, that got us up to the 6, and then the 7. The 7. The 7 is still. I haven't called it stillborn yet. I deign to call it that. Um, yeah, it's not exactly accepted. It's still technically in T&E. I haven't put it in frontline use. It may actually just stay a test article, but it is a 7. It is a direct result of the W body experiments. And it does in fact have a W body, but like all phases, it looks really pretty in flight. And you know what? That's not a phase. Shit, I've got that in the wrong folder. Forgive me. That's a basic idea. That's just one of the W bodies. That's not even the phase because it actually has. Oh, this is one. I built 2 of them out of pink. There's one that was actually a straight up W body. This is the phase variant. They're similar, but in fact, like obviously the one that you saw, it had delta diamond tips. That's not the phase. That's one of the W body experimental planes. This one doesn't have it. This is the phase 7. But you might as well. I may as well have a pre X on those because they're not, like I said, they're not in combat use. They're not in frontline use. They're still in testing. They may never leave the testing stage. They work. I'm just not happy with how their T&E is gone. Actually, I'm not happy with how the D&T is gone. I suppose technically, really say they're in like D&T because the program as it is still in development. So, trying to see if I've got. Yeah, she's in there because this is basically a shot of 4 of the examples, and you may have seen this. This is 4 of the examples of W bodies, and the last 2 are phase 7s. These front 2 are not. This first one actually is kind of variant when I altered the layout, but that not built, not accepted. These all flew quite well, but they're not. Only the back 2 are true phase 7s, and we do quantify those. We call them phase 7s. It's just they may never actually see frontline use. And that's where we were up to the 8, which is still in R&D. So, phase 8 is brought to you by the 332. If you remember the 332, of course, it has become quite a popular plane, very fast. You know it, you love it, you've seen it, and like so many other planes that you may build, that any others may build, when you do it, you realize like, hey, I can do this. I can do this with something else. I've done this before. It's how that's how the 332 came, and obviously the 332, you've seen it. Again, I don't need to show it, but I will say this because it's the best example since I haven't taken a picture of the 8 yet. I've only got one phase 8, but it borrowed the tech of the 332. Like I said, if you've got your own planes, you know you've done this before. That was the whole point to it, was it was using these planes, and I gave it fins like the 332's got. So looking at a 332 gives you a pretty good example of what an 8 looks like. Um, just not like that. So I honestly don't know where it is. It may in fact be upstairs because I've been testing the one example I have. I know it's an 8. I know I will accept it as an 8. It's just whether it will not be, it'll be stillborn like the 7. So, whoa, excuse me, I did not mean to do that. Pardon me, guys. We stepped out for a moment. Bleep. Anyway, yeah. So, uh, that's where we're at. That's the family. You came down through the phase history from October 85 until now. And that's why we have 8. It's just 8. You may have heard him joke about like phase 19 and phase 100 and stuff. And while the phase 100 does exist, it's an export battle and doesn't exist. Um, R&D is also going on in the phase 9. Will there be a phase 9? Probably. There probably will. I'm not gonna lie. Um, we're working on it. We're working on it. Will we have it? I don't know, but we're working on it. Still, we'll always be working on those. Um, so that's our show. I literally, I don't know why. I just wanted to make it exclusive on the phases because I wanted y'all to follow along and see, live it. There's some clips. There's some clips out there. Go to my channel. Go to IVPAC's channel. You'll see some phases flying. Most people are in awe of them. Most people try to build planes. You got to build a plane to compete with it. You got to build a plane to beat it because it is the plane to beat. Even though nowadays Wasp and Wyvern and I've got some planes that really could make some competition for it. Cirrus even does a good job. But yeah, guys, yeah, that's our show. Thanks for sitting with me for an hour long history of the phase. But I wanted to get you up, so I mean, I wanted you to see. It got me excited. It gets others excited. It's a great plane. I mean, you could call it a show on great planes, and I'd love to see y'all's great planes. So let me know about them. Like, do a show on them. I will definitely watch. I love the shows on like that. So, but in the meantime, thanks for sitting with me. Questions, comments, of course, leave them down there. Thanks for watching. There'll be more shows like this. Hopefully, they won't be as long as an hour. I can't believe I took this to an hour, but whatever, guys. You know the drill, though. I mean, you guys out there, stay strong. Ukraine, stay strong. We're with you. Russia's folding up. But for all it's worth, man, y'all out there, stay safe, stay sane. Keep building, man. Keep bettering those designs. Keep bettering yourselves.